أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال الذين لا يرجون لقاءنا لولا أنزل علينا الملائكة أو نرى ربنا. Today we will be covering the 19th juz, inshallah. But we will start off with Surah Furqan because we left it yesterday. We stopped at Surah An-Nur. The first 20 verses of Surah Furqan are in the 18th juz, but we did not start it yesterday. Surah Furqan is a Meccan surah. Furqan is the name of the Qur'an. It starts off with barakah alladhi nazzala al-Furqan. This has 77 verses. It doesn't start off with huruf muqatta'at, but there is still a discussion, introduction to the Qur'an. Tabarak alladhi nazzala al-Furqan. So Qur'an has been referred to as a Furqan, the criterion, the decider, the distinguisher between truth and falsehood. This is the Qur'an. Ala abdihi liyakuna lil'alamina nadhira is revealed upon his servant so that he is a warner for the worlds. Alladhi lahu mulku samawati wal ard. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues with mentioning his majesty, and he is the one who for whom the kingdom of the heavens and the earth is, and this discussion continues. And then there's mention about the absurd claims of the mushrikeen. Verse number 4 and 5 mention وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا إِفْكٌ افْتَرَاهُ وَأَعَانَهُ عَلَيْهِ قَوْمٌ آخَرُونَ. And then the next verse وَقَالُوا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. They would claim that this has been fabricated, made up, or he has been helped by the Christians and the Jews. Some would say that they are old tales, أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And there's other places in the Quran where Allah has mentioned how they would call him Majnoon and Sha'ir and whatnot. And then they would also claim, verse number 7 says, وَقَالُوا مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامِ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. What is with this Rasul? He eats food and he walks in the markets. لَوْلَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِ مَلَكٌ فَيَكُونَ مَعَهُ نَذِيرًا. Why is an angel with him that would be a warner? The angel would warn that this is a prophet and you need to follow him. And this is answered in the last verse of the juz. Verse number 20, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا قَبْلَكَ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ إِلَّا أَنَّهُمْ لَيَأْكُلُونَ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشُونَ فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. All the prophets that were sent before, they would consume food and they would walk in the markets, so this is nothing new. Then moving on to the 19th juz, it continues with Surah Furqan. But from here you would see that if you read the verses, you read the translation, you will see that the surah has a much more powerful tone. It's more majestic. The qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been mentioned. The beginning part of this juz is mentioned about the day of judgment, resurrection. وَيَوْمَ تَشَقَّقُ السَّمَاءُ بِالْغَمَامِ وَنُزِّلَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ تَنزِيلًا. The day when the sky will split from the clouds. وَنُزِّلَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ تَنزِيلًا. And the angels will come down in large number. الْمُلْكُ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْحَقُّ لِلرَّحْمَنِ. That day the kingdom would be for the Rahman. And then verse number 32 mentions وَقَالُ الَّذِينَ, another claim of the mushrikeen, وَقَالُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآنُ جُمْلَةً وَاحِدَةً. They would claim, why wasn't the Quran revealed all at once? كَذَلِكَ لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. This is the way we revealed it, to strengthen your heart. Allah says to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا, and we revealed it gradually. And then from here onwards, there's mention of the Prophet's stories, starting with Musa alayhi salam. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلْنَا مَعَهُ أَخَاهُ هَارُونَ وَزِيرًا. Musa and Harun وَقَوْمَ نُوحٍ لَمَّا كَذَّبُوا الرُّسُلَ. And over here, they are just being mentioned, passing by. So the nation of Nuh alayhi salam, وَعَادٌ وَثَمُودَ وَأَصْحَابُ الرَّسِّ. The Aad, Thamud, and the people of the well have been mentioned. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ كَيْفَ مَدَّ الظِّلَّ. Then from verse 45 onwards, there's mention about shade and other examples given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verse number 53, again another marvel. وَهُوَ الَّذِي مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ هَذَا عَذْبٌ فُرَاتٌ وَهَذَا مِلْحٌ أُجَاجٌ. And he is the one who separated the seas. This one, هَذَا عَذْبٌ فُرَاتٌ. This one is sweet and quenching. وَهَذَا مِلْحٌ أُجَاجٌ. And this one is salty and bitter. And we can see this marvel nowadays, where many places on the earth the two types of water do not mix. And then verse number 58, a beautiful verse, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى الْحَيِّ الَّذِي لَا يَمُوتُ وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِهِ. And trust on the one who is living, who never dies. وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِهِ. And sing his praises. And then from verse number 63 onwards, right to the end, you could say, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا And the people of Rahman, the slaves of Rahman, are those who walk on the earth with humility. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. And when the jahil, the ignorant people address them, then they just say salam, peace. And from here onwards, again, there's not enough time to read through and mention all the characteristics, but inshallah from verse number 63 in your own time, read the translation, see the characteristics mentioned here of the believers. And right at the end of the surah, there's mention about a beautiful dua which we need to learn and incorporate into our du'as, daily du'as. Verse number 74, وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ, and these are those, the Ibadur Rahman referring to, وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. And these are those people who say, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. Ya Allah, give us, our Rabb, give us the coolness of our eyes in our wives and in our children. وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا, and make us imams for the muttaqeen, for the pious. So this is a beautiful dua which we should learn, inshallah. That concludes Surah Al-Furqan. Then we move on to Surah Shu'ara. Surah Shu'ara is a slightly lengthier surah, 227 verses, but I guess the verses aren't very long. So Surah Al-Shu'ara is a Meccan surah again, so it will be targeting the Aqaid, and there's many stories of the prophets mentioned in this surah as well. So it starts off with Tasim Tilka Ayatul Kitab al-Mubin. It starts off with Huruf Muqatta'at, individual separated letters, and then discussion of the Qur'an. Tilka Ayatul Kitab al-Mubin. These are verses of the open book. لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ أَلَّا يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. It is as if you will destroy yourself. أَلَّا يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ, that they are not becoming believers. إِنَّ شَأْنُ نُنَزِّلْ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ آيَةً فَظَلَّتْ أَعْنَاقُهُمْ لَهَا خَاضِعِينَ. Allah is saying that if we wanted, then we would have revealed a sign from the heavens, and then their necks would bow down and they would accept. But this is not the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's words of comfort for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the beginning of this surah, and then it starts off with the stories of the prophets. وَإِذْ نَادَى رَبُّكَ مُوسَى أَنِ ائْتِ الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Starts off with the story of Musa and Harun. And then moving on, this one is in quite some detail over here. Then moving on to story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, وَاتْلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. And in this part, there's a slightly different aspect of the story mentioned, how Ibrahim alayhi salam tells us about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, introduces us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينَ. He is the one who has created me and he guides me. وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينِ. He feeds me and quenches my thirst. وَإِذَا مَرَضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينَ. When I am ill, then he provides me with cure. وَالَّذِي يُمِيتُنِي ثُمَّ يُحْيِينَ. And he is the one who gives me death and then he will give me life. So these are beautiful verses, verse number 78 onwards. Then moving on, the next story mentioned is that of Nuh alayhi salam. وَكَذَّبَتْ قَوْمُ نُوحٍ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Verse number 105 onwards. كَذَّبَتْ عَادٌ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Story of Ad. كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. The story of Thamud has been mentioned. So a lot of, as we can see, stories of the prophets. I'm just mentioning briefly and passing by that there are some details in the surah which we should read upon in our own time, inshallah. Then verse number 160, كَذَّبَتْ قَوْمُ لُوطٍ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. The story of Lut alayhi salam. كَذَّبَتْ أَصْحَابُ الْأَيْكَةِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. The Ashabul Aykah have been mentioned. You can see this. The beginning of the story is same. كذبت. They rejected, denied. The Ashabul Aykah is the people of the forest, referring to the Ashabu Madian. Some scholars have said they are different, and Shu'aib alayhi salam was sent to both of them, but many are of the opinion that no, they're the same people. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, verse number 192 says, وَإِنَّهُ لَتَنْزِيلُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ. And this is a revelation from the Rabb, from the Lord of the worlds. نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ. The Ruh al-Amin, referring to Jibreel Islam, the angel Jibreel has brought it down. عَلَى قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ. On your heart, so that you are from the warners. بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ. In the open Arabic language, clear Arabic language. So as we know, this is referring to the Qur'an. The language of the Qur'an is Arabic. The true word of Allah is the Arabic. All the translations which we read and recite, they are close, but you can never justify the Arabic. That's why we should try and learn the Arabic, which is the true language of the Qur'an, and the word, the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Arabic. The others are just translations of what people, the closest understanding of people. And then right at the end of the surah is mentioned about the shu'ara, the poets, and that's why the surah has been named Surah Shu'ara, because of these verses. So Allah says, verse number 224, وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ, regarding the shu'ara, the poets, they are followed by the deviant ones. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّهُمْ فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ يَهِيمُونَ, do you not see that they wander in every valley? وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ, and many of them, and they say what they do not do. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, except for those who believe and do good deeds. So there are good poets, as well as we know the Sha'ir al-Rasul, Hassan bin Thabit. Rasulullah would put him on the minbar and tell him to recite poetry in his defense, of his honor, because the mushrikeen would recite poetry against Rasulullah. So there are good poets as well, but generally speaking, there are deviant ones, except for those who are believers and do good deeds, as mentioned over here. Now we move on to Surah Naml. Naml is the ant, and this is named after Naml because of the encounter of Sulaiman alayhi salam with the ants. It's a Meccan surah, and these surahs, so Surah Shu'ara, Surah Naml, and Surah Qasas, the next one, these are all similar. Many stories of the prophets, and the theme is very similar. These have actually been revealed in the same order that they are found in the Qur'an. So it was Shu'ara, Naml, and Qasas in the Meccan period revealed, and that's how they have found in the Qur'an as well. So this is a speciality of these surahs, you could say. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts off with the huruf muqatta'at in this surah, Tasin, Tilka ayatul Qur'ani wa kitabim mubin, and then introduction to the Qur'an, as is the norm. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the beginning of the surah starts off with the stories of the prophets. إِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِأَهْلِهِ إِنِّي آنَسْتُ نَارًا. The story of Musa alayhi salam has been mentioned. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ عِلْمًا. Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam has been mentioned. Sulaiman alayhi salam in quite more detail, a few of his episodes in the story has been mentioned over here. And then verse number 18 is why the surah has been named Surah Naml, is because of the incident of the ant. حَتَّى إِذَا أَتَوْا عَلَى وَادِ النَّمْلِ قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم, until his army, they came across the valley of the ants, and one of the ants said to the others that enter your dwellings. لا يحتمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون, so that the Sulaiman and his army do not trample you while they do not know, while they are unaware. فتبسم ضاحكا من قولها. Sulaiman alayhi salam heard this, and he smiled and started laughing. Min qawliha, from the saying of the ant, and then this caused Sulaiman alayhi salam to praise Allah. Wa qala rabbi awzi'ni an ashkura ni'matak allati an'amta alayya wa ala walidayya. And wa qala rabbi, and he said that, oh my Rabb, allow me to express my gratitude for the blessings, for your blessings on me and my parents. So this has been mentioned, this story has been mentioned over here. And then the next story mentions how the bird was missing, and the story of Bilqis and her acceptance is in a bit more detail. So وَتَفَقَدَ الطَّيْرَ فَقَالَ مَا لِي لَا أَرَى الْهُدْهُدْ. So when Hudhud, the bird, was missing, he was going to punish the bird. Either the bird has a valid excuse or it was going to get punished. And then it came with the news that, about إِنِّي وَجَدْتُ امْرَأَةً تَمْلِكُهُمْ وَأُوتِيَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَلَهَا عَرْشٌ عَظِيمٌ. A woman who is the leader and she has a great arsh, a throne. وَجَدْتُهَا وَقَوْمَهَا يَسْجُدُونَ لِلشَّمْسِ. They worship the sun min dunillah, other than Allah. And this was Bilqis and her nation. And then Sulaiman Islam sends a letter, and this is mentioned, a very brief letter. إِنَّهُ مِن سُلَيْمَانَ وَإِنَّهُ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. It is from Sulaiman, and it starts with the name of Allah, who is the most kind, the most merciful. أَلَّا تَعْلُوا عَلَيَّ وَأْتُونِ مُسْلِمِينَ. That do not be arrogant against me and come to me submitting. So this was the letter, and then there's a whole discussion of what she decides. She tries to send gifts, which is rejected by Sulaiman as-salam. And then Sulaiman as-salam says, okay, when she's going to come, before she comes, I want her throne with me. So who's going to get it for me? The قال عفريت من الجن أنا آتيك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامك. The Ifrit min al-Jinn from the jinn, a giant jinn. He said that I will bring it to you before you get up from your place. This was not good enough for Sulaiman, so he alayhi salam. So قال الذين عنده علم من الكتاب. So the one who had knowledge of the book, he said أنا آتيك به قبل أن يرتد إليك طرفك. Before you blink your eye, I will bring it for you. The throne was brought, and then when she came and she saw the throne, she thought that it was similar, and it is the same throne. And there's mention about how Sulaiman Islam made a glass palace, and she was made to walk, and she thought it was water, rather it was glass, and she lifted her garment, and her ankles were showing. So this has been mentioned in quite some detail over here. And then she accepts, she submits. قالت ربي إني ظلمت نفسي وأسلمت مع سليمان لله رب العالمين. And then from here there's mention about other stories. We are concluding the juz. The Surah An-Naml will continue tomorrow in the 20th juz. But this, at the end of the 19th juz, there's the mention of Thamud and Salih alayhi salam. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا. And Lut alayhi salam has been mentioned. وَلُوطًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ أَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ وَأَنْتُمْ تُبْصِرُونَ. The main problem, sin of his nation, sodomy, has been mentioned. أَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالِ. You come to the men, shahwatan, with desires, min duni nisa, other than the women. So this has been mentioned over here near the end, and this concludes the 19th juz. We'll continue with Surah An-Naml tomorrow. May Allah give us the understanding and the ability to act upon whatever has been read and said, and may Allah give us the ability to propagate this to others. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.